Home Studio Start podcast.
All right, so have you ever been listening to a song and you think man, I could totally remix this.
Oh, yeah.
But then you're like, but wait, how do we even get the vocals out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The remixer's dilemma.
Exactly right. It's like the inspiration's there,
Right.
but the tools, not so much. But guess what? AI is coming to the rescue. So today we're diving into that whole AI vocal removal scene. How accurate is it really? What are some pitfalls to watch out for? And how is it changing the game for remixing? And get this, AI might actually work better on some types of music than others.
Interesting.
I know, right? Wild. So first up, how accurate is this AI vocal removal stuff?
Well, AI has gotten really good at this, but it's still not perfect.
Yeah.
The results that you get really depend a lot on what you're starting with. So let's say you're working with a pop track. You'll probably get a pretty decent instrumental, but there might be some remnants of the vocals.
So a little echo of the singer here and there.
Yeah, especially where the vocals and the instruments kind of overlap.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, that's what we call vocal bleed.
Vocal bleed.
Yeah. And a good trick for that is to isolate the whole vocal frequency range when you're editing, not just the obvious bleed.
Okay.
And then use noise reduction on that whole range. And that usually cleans things up quite a bit.
Oh, that's smart.
Okay.
Now, what about electronic music? That seems like it might be easier for the AI to kind of handle.
You're right. Simpler electronic tracks are usually a breeze for AI to deal with. It can really nail that separation.
Okay.
But things get trickier with super complex EDM. With all those layers upon layers of sounds, it can kind of confuse the AI.
Yeah.
And even if it sounds good at first, crank up the volume and you might hear some weird artifacts creeping in.
Oh, that's a good point. Got to check it at all volume levels.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got pop and electronic kind of working. What about rock or metal?
Yeah.
Where there's way more instruments going on.
Way more instruments, lots of overlapping frequencies. It's like a recipe for AI confusion. You might end up with missing parts, instruments that sound off, or just a ton of artifacts.
So is it even worth trying with those genres?
It depends. If you're a purist and you need a perfectly clean instrumental, probably not.
Okay.
But if you're down to get creative, you can totally work with what the AI gives you.
Okay, I'm all about creative solutions, so hit me with some examples.
Well, for rock or metal, you might think about reamping some instruments or even synthesizing parts to fill in the gaps.
That's interesting.
It's a little more hands-on, but hey, it's music. It's supposed to be fun, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So AI is a starting point, not the finish line. You bring your own skills to the table and make it work.
Exactly. No matter what genre you're working with, remember, AI is giving you a workable version, not a perfect one.
Gotcha.
You've got to be ready to use your editing skills to kind of polish it up.
Okay. So even if the AI does a decent job, we've got to watch out for these artifacts that you mentioned. What are those exactly, and how do we deal with them?
Artifacts are these unwanted sounds that can pop up after you remove the vocals, and they can really mess with the quality. One of the most common ones is spectral masking artifacts, and they sound like this kind of faint swirling or phasing effect.
Oh, whoa, trippy. Why does that happen?
It's because the AI is basically cutting and pasting different frequency bands together.
Right.
And sometimes it just doesn't quite line up perfectly. You'll usually hear it in places where the vocals and the instruments were kind of battling for space in the original track.
Okay. So how do we fight back against these sonic invaders?
There are a few weapons in our arsenal. A de-esser can be super helpful for that.
Okay.
They smooth out those swirling sounds by targeting those specific frequencies where they're most prominent.
So de-esser noted. Anything else to watch out for?
Yeah, keep an ear out for what we call gating artifacts.
Gating?
Yeah. This is when instruments get suddenly cut off or softened because they shared frequencies with the vocals.
Okay.
It's especially noticeable with sustained notes or long decays, think pads or strings or some guitars.
Yeah, I bet that sounds jarring.
It can be. A trick I like to use is adding a very short, subtle reverb just to kind of smooth over those abrupt silences.
Okay.
Makes it sound way more natural.
Nice. So using effects strategically to cover up the AI's mess-ups.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's the game. And don't forget, sometimes the whole instrumental just sounds thinner or weaker after the AI does its thing.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
It loses some of its punch.
How do we fix that?
Layering is your friend. Try mixing the AI instrumental with a clean sample of the original track's bass frequencies.
Okay.
It can really bring back that oomph.
Clever. It's like Frankensteining the best parts together.
Yeah.
But doesn't all this processing add noise?
It can.
Yeah.
Noise reduction plugins can definitely help, but don't go overboard.
Okay.
Too much noise reduction and you end up with a really dull, lifeless sound. It's
Got
a
it.
delicate balance.
So manage the artifacts, bring back the punch, and be careful with the noise reduction. Got it. But here's something I'm curious about. You keep mentioning different genres. Does genre really matter that much when it comes to AI vocal removal?
You're totally right to ask that AI isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. It's like some genres are AI's best friend and others not so much.
Okay, let's break it down. We were talking about pop music earlier.
Right. Pop music is usually AI's jam.
Okay.
But here's a pro tip. Different AI models might work better with male versus female vocals.
Yeah.
So if you're working with like a specific artist, it's worth trying a few different AI tools to see which one gives you the cleanest result.
Interesting. So it's not just about the genre, but also the specific voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
What about electronic music? Any surprises there?
As we said, like, simple electronic tracks are AI's happy place.
Okay.
But throw in some super complex EDM, and the AI might start sweating.
So what do you do when the AI hits its limit?
Honestly, sometimes it's better to just recreate some of those intricate instrumental parts yourself. It might take a little more time, but you'll have way more control over the quality.
Good call.
Yeah.
Now, what about those genres that AI struggles with, like rock and metal? Any hope for those?
Well, prepare to get your hands dirty. You'll definitely need to do a lot of post-processing and manual editing to kind of clean things up.
Right.
But here's a fun idea. Instead of fighting those distorted, extracted vocals, embrace them. Use them for sound design.
Ooh, I like that. Turn those imperfections into something cool and unique.
Exactly. Now let's talk about hip-hop.
Okay.
It's kind of a wild card. Sometimes AI nails it. Sometimes it's a total flop.
What makes the difference?
If the track has, like, clean vocals and clear samples, the AI usually does a decent job.
Okay.
But if the vocals are heavily processed, like with a ton of auto-tune or distortion, the AI can get lost.
So what's the best strategy for hip-hop remixes?
If the vocals are tricky, it might be easier to focus on remixing the instrumental elements and then adding your own new vocals.
Gotcha. Work with the AI's strengths.
Exactly. Play to its strengths, avoid its weaknesses.
Makes sense. Okay, last genre we talked about was acoustic and folk. Any tips for those?
Acoustic and folk can be deceptively difficult. Sparse arrangements with a prominent vocal can sometimes work well, but watch out for weirdness in the low frequencies.
So it's not as straightforward as it seems. AI has got a mind of its own.
It does. The main takeaway is that genre matters, and experimentation is key.
Okay.
You won't know what the AI can do until you try it out.
So we've covered the accuracy parts, the artifact battle, and the genre roller coaster. But let's talk about the bigger picture here. How is AI vocal removal changing the game for remixing? Is it good or bad for creativity?
That's a great question. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Okay.
On the one hand, AI is opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
Like what? Give me the good stuff.
Well, first of all, it gives you access to this massive library of instrumentals that were previously like impossible to get.
Right.
Think about all those songs that you love.
Yeah.
But you could never find a good instrumental version of AI changes that.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yeah.
You could remix practically anything.
Exactly. It also makes it way easier to experiment with different genres. You could take like an indie folk song and turn it into a drum and bass banger. Wow. Or flip a classic rock anthem into a chilled out lo-fi track.
Genre bending madness. I love it.
Right. And don't forget about the time-saving factor.
Right.
AI extraction is so much faster than trying to isolate vocals manually. That frees up more time for the fun stuff, like arranging and sound design and just being creative.
So more time for the art, less time for the technical grind. Makes sense. But you said there's a downside too, right? What's the catch?
The catch is that those imperfections that we talked about, like artifacts and loss of fidelity, can sometimes make things sound a bit generic, especially if everyone's using the same AI tools and not putting in that extra work to really make their remixes stand out.
So AI can be a shortcut,
Yeah.
but shortcuts can also lead to dead ends, creatively speaking.
Right. It's about using AI as a starting point and then bringing your own artistic vision to the table.
Yeah.
Don't let the AI dictate your choices.
So like even if the AI generated instrumental is a bit weak, you can always layer in some extra sounds, create new elements, get wild with effects to kind of make it your own.
Exactly. AI can be a collaborator, not a dictator.
Okay, that makes sense. Use AI wisely. Don't be a slave to it.
Right.
But there's one more big thing we need to talk about, and I know this is a bit of a buzzkill, but it's important. The legal stuff.
Yeah, the legal stuff.
As much as we love the creative possibilities of AI, it doesn't give us a free pass to ignore copyright law.
Exactly.
So let's lay down the law. What are the biggest legal things people need to know about AI-generated instrumentals?
First and foremost, even though it's AI doing the work, those instrumentals are still considered derivative works,
Okay.
meaning they're based on copyrighted material, and you need permission from the copyright holders to use them for anything beyond like personal, non-commercial stuff.
So no remixing Drake and selling it on Spotify unless you want a lawsuit.
Pretty much. And it's not just about like the legal ramifications, it's also about respecting artists and their creative vision.
Right. Artists deserve to have control over how their work is used. Makes sense. So how do we navigate this legal minefield?
The safest bet is always to get licenses or permission from the copyright holders. That usually means contacting the publisher for the song and the record label for the recording itself.
Sounds complicated.
It can be, and it often costs money. There are services like Harry Fox Agency and mechanical licensing collectives that can help, but it's still something you need to research and plan for.
Okay, so no easy way around it. And what about this whole fair use thing? Does that apply to remixes?
Unfortunately, not really. Fair use allows like limited use of copyrighted material in specific situations like for education or criticism.
Right.
But commercial remixes don't usually qualify. Even sharing a remix for free online can be risky.
So it's always best to play it safe and get permission. Any other tips for staying out of trouble?
Absolutely. Platforms like SoundCloud and YouTube have systems that can help identify copyrighted material and potentially even help you monetize your remixes legally.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, so they've got your back to some extent. And don't be afraid to reach out to artists directly, especially smaller independent artists. They might be more open to collaborations or granting permission.
Right. It's all about building those relationships and showing respect for the artists. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground here. Accuracy, artifacts, genres, creative impact, legal stuff. It's a lot. But what are like the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say the biggest one is to approach AI vocal removal with a balanced mindset.
Okay.
It's a powerful tool, but it's not magic.
Right. It's not about replacing human creativity. It's about amplifying it.
Exactly. Be aware of the limitations. Be ready to get creative with your problem solving, and always respect copyright law and artists' rights.
Words to live by.
And on that note, let's dive into some more practical stuff.
Cool.
After, I don't know.
Sounds good.
When we come back, we'll talk about specific AI tools, editing techniques, and maybe even some creative strategies for using AI vocal removal in your music.
Cool.
Stay tuned.
Awesome.
So we just spent some time talking about like the big picture of AI vocal removal.
Yeah.
But I know some of you are probably thinking, okay, this all sounds cool, but where do I even begin? Right. Especially if you're just starting out with your home studio.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit overwhelming.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what's the first step for someone who wants to like dip their toes into the AI vocal removal pool?
Start with the tools. There are tons of free or affordable AI vocal removal tools available online and as plugins.
Okay.
You don't need a crazy studio setup to play around with them.
So seriously, you can just fire up your laptop and get started.
Exactly. You can literally experiment right on your laptop or even your phone in some cases. The key is to find a tool that's user-friendly and that works well for the kind of music that you're into.
Gotcha. User-friendly is key for a newbie like me. Any recommendations for those of us who are just starting out?
There are a few popular ones that are known for being pretty easy to use, like LA Law AI and Phonic Mind.
Okay.
They have free tiers where you can process a limited number of tracks, which is perfect for just testing the waters.
Okay, so test out a few different tools, see what you like, and maybe upgrade to a paid version later on if you're really feeling it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Yeah.
That's the beauty of these tools. You can tweak settings, try different things, and you're not going to mess up your original audio files.
That takes the pressure off. But what about the legal side of things? We talked about copyright earlier. Any advice for beginners who want to make sure they're playing by the rules?
Definitely, copyright still applies, even if you're just starting out.
Yeah.
Don't assume that you can just grab any song and remix it without consequences.
Right, so no remixing Taylor Swift and posting it on TikTok without her permission.
Probably not the best idea.
Okay.
The best way to stay safe is to start with royalty-free music or tracks that are explicitly licensed for remixing.
Okay. Where can people find those?
There are tons of websites that offer royalty-free music, like Free Music Archive and Bensound.
Cool.
And some artists will actually release their stems or instrumentals specifically for remixers.
Awesome. So do your research, read the licensing agreements, make sure you're in the clear before you start remixing. But what about the actual creative process? Any tips for beginners who might be feeling a bit lost? My number one tip is to keep it simple.
Okay.
Don't try to do too much at once. Pick a song that you love And start by making small changes, like adjust the tempo, add some basic drums, throw in a few samples.
So baby steps.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to borrow ideas from other remixes that you like.
Right.
Listen to how other producers have flipped songs and try to figure out what they did.
Like learning from the masters.
Totally. And most importantly, have fun.
Yes.
Remixing is all about expressing yourself and getting creative. Don't get bogged down in the technical stuff. Just play around and see what you can come up with.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
It's about the joy of creating, not the stress of getting everything perfect.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to kind of circle back to something we touched on earlier,
Cool.
The future of AI in music.
Yeah.
This technology is moving so fast, it's mind-blowing to think about where it might go.
Yeah, it's exciting and a little bit scary at the same time.
For sure. But at the end of the day, AI is a tool.
Right.
And it's up to us to use it responsibly and ethically.
So let's use it to enhance human creativity, not replace it.
Absolutely. Let's use AI to break down barriers, to explore new sonic landscapes, and to create music that is both innovative and meaningful.
Well said. That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI, vocal removal, and remixing.
It's been fun.
If you want to learn more about any of the tools, techniques, or legal stuff we talked about, check out the show notes for links and resources.
Yeah.
And we want to hear from you. How are you using AI in your music? What cool remixes have you created? Hit us up on social media and share your experiences.
For sure.
Until next time, keep experimenting, keep creating, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with music. CI.
Bye.